Powerful insights often occur when you least expect them. On Transformative Leadership Conversations, they're at the heart of every episode. Hi, I'm your host, Winnie da Silva. In this season, I'm sharing short, focused leadership insights, practical ideas, myths worth challenging, and tools you can immediately apply in your work. Together, we'll explore what it takes to lead effectively today, from understanding your role and the value you create to sharpening the way you think, communicate, and solve problems as a leader. In each episode, you'll walk away with inspiration, strategies, and practical tools to strengthen your leadership, build effective teams, and lead thriving organizations. So, what if being seen as a competent and trusted leader wasn't about talking more, but instead it was about asking questions and using that as a way to significantly elevate your leadership impact in unexpected ways? As leaders, we are primed and trained to think that we must have all the answers. Telling, explaining, convincing, these leadership characteristics and skills have been drilled into us. We must do these things to prove we are competent and trusted. Asking questions? Well, that shows weakness, uncertainty. Maybe it shows that we're unprepared. This episode is going to unlock for you a leadership tool people don't even think to use: asking thoughtful, open-ended questions. And at the end of our time together, you'll have some specific questions in a variety of situations that you can use today, because I love this tool. So most leaders I work with are under a tremendous amount of pressure. You're busy, you're accountable, you are expected to have answers. So a team member brings you in a problem, and then of course you immediately jump to a solution. A meeting stalls and you step in to move things forward. Someone proposes something, it feels unclear, and your instinct is to critique or to correct it. While none of this is wrong, in fact, early in our careers, we've been rewarded for exactly this kind of behavior: having the answers, solving those problems quickly, and moving things along. The challenge is that as your leadership scope continues to grow, the job changes. Leadership at scale is not about having all the answers yourself. It's about drawing out the answers from other people, drawing out their perspectives and ideas about how you might solve a complex problem. So when leaders default too quickly to telling, there are a few hidden costs that end up showing up. For example, people rely on you more than they should. Ownership drops. People think less for themselves. Important information doesn't get surfaced. What happens over time is that leaders can unknowingly become the bottleneck for their team's thinking and decision-making. Asking thoughtful questions is one of the simplest ways to change that dynamic. Now, early in your career, people or you might expect that you had all the answers based on your expertise. But as you become more senior, leadership becomes much more about bringing together expertise across functions, teams, and sometimes across the entire organization. And in those situations, telling people what to do often is less effective. Thoughtful questions becomes one of the most powerful ways to hone your strategic thinking and to influence without shutting people down. It also shows people that you're thoughtful and that you're trying to uncover things that maybe haven't been uncovered yet. At the same time, open-ended questions are incredibly powerful for more junior leaders as well, but for sometimes slightly different reasons. If you're early in your leadership journey, asking good questions helps you learn faster, build relationships, and understand how decisions are really being made. Questions are not a sign of weakness. They are one of the most versatile leadership tools you have, whether you're just starting to lead others or leading at the most senior levels of an organization. So one framework that explains this really nicely is about using advocacy and inquiry. Advocacy is when you share your idea and the thought process behind it. Inquiry is when you use questions to uncover the thinking behind other people's ideas. Effective leaders, of course, know how to use both. However, many of us over-index on advocacy and underuse inquiry. So questions can do much more than we even realize. So let's explore a few ways questions are powerful leadership tools. And I'm going to introduce 7. I know that's a lot, but stick with me. So the 7 are these: creating ownership, reducing defensiveness, surfacing valuable information, improving decision-making, building trust, increasing accountability, and the last one, revealing what people care about. Okay, let's tackle creating ownership. Creating ownership. Asking thoughtful questions creates an opportunity for people to co-create with you. When someone articulates their own thinking, first of all, their commitment to that idea, however it evolves, it automatically increases. When leaders jump too quickly to solutions, the opposite oftentimes happens. People comply in the moment, sure, but the thinking and the ownership, that ends up staying with the leader. Questions, however, can shift that entire dynamic. Number 2, inquiry reduces defensiveness. So when leaders tell people what's wrong or what they should do, people often become defensive. Questions can create space for reflection instead of reaction. Questions can allow people to examine their own thinking rather than feeling like they're being corrected. Number 3, questions surface information you might otherwise miss. One of the biggest risks in leadership is acting on incomplete information. When leaders ask thoughtful questions, however, they can uncover things that might otherwise stay hidden. For example, concerns, assumptions, that's a big one, potential competing priorities you're not aware of, risks people haven't voiced yet. In other words, question can often reveal the real issue beneath the surface problem. Number 4, questions improve decision quality. Research consistently shows that leaders who ask more questions tend to make better decisions. Why? Well, just what I was saying a minute ago, because questions force us to test those assumptions, explore potential other alternatives, and consider information we might otherwise have overlooked. In complex situations and organizations, that kind of thinking dramatically improves the quality of our decisions. Number 5, questions build trust. When leaders ask thoughtful questions, people oftentimes feel heard. It signals that their perspective matters. Over time, this builds trust and psychological safety, 2 of the most important ingredients in high-performing teams and relationships. Number 6, questions increase accountability. So when someone generates the idea themselves, they're far more likely to follow through, right? Instead of hearing what you should do, the leader might ask, what do you think the best next step is? That shuttle shift moves the responsibility back exactly where it belongs. The last one, number 7, questions reveal what people care about. The questions leader asks consistently signal what matters. They also help you understand what people care about, what I often call their currency, which is a concept I explore in another episode in this season. When you understand someone's currency, you can influence people much more effectively. Okay, so at this point, you might be asking yourself this: what are some of those questions that I should be thinking about asking? What are some examples? Okay, well, first, it's important to know that different situations serve different leadership purposes. So I'm going to offer 5 different specific situations and questions underneath each of those situations that you can ask. So what are those situations? They are understanding someone's thinking, collaboration and partnership, feedback conversations, vision and goals, problem solving and decision making. Okay, so first let's go with understanding someone's thinking. Let me give you some examples of questions you can use. By the way, these will all be in the show notes, so you don't have to make notes if you don't want to. We'll give you all these in the show notes. Okay, understanding someone's thinking. That's an interesting point. Tell me more about what you're thinking. When you say X, what does that mean to you? What would need to be true for this to work? And the last one, what do you care most about in this situation? Okay, let's go to another situation. Collaboration and partnership. Here are some questions you can ask. How might we best partner together on this? What role would you like me to play here? What decision do you need from me today? What I like about those questions is that that could work both in a peer-to-peer relationship or in a situation where it's with a manager and their direct report. Okay, feedback conversations. What feedback do you have for me? I love that question. Really smart senior leaders ask that question all the time because the more senior you get, the less feedback you get. Another question, what's hard to tell me? What is hard to tell me? I love that. So you're saying, like, what are the hard things that you're not telling me? What should you be telling me? And then this one is kind of along the same lines. What are we not talking about that we probably should be? Okay, next category, vision and goals. Couple of questions you could ask. If you and your team could only achieve one thing this year, what would it be? I love this question because what you're doing is you're helping people ruthlessly prioritize the one thing that's most important, right? Another question, what challenge, if solved, would make the biggest difference? And the last one is, what are your top priorities and why? Again, I love these because it helps boil down, again, what are the real goals here? Okay, the last category, problem solving and decision making. Couple of questions. What might be the root issue underneath this? What are we implicitly saying no to by saying yes? I love that question. What data would change your mind? Okay, so the bottom line is this, right? Asking open-ended questions is not about giving up control or knowing all the answers. Asking thoughtful, open-ended questions is about elevating the quality of the thinking in the room. And therefore, when the thinking improves, the outcomes usually do as well. Now, I've seen leaders experiment with this and quickly notice that their teams start bringing more complete thinking. People come with options instead of just problems. Conversations become more collaborative and less directive. Because over time, leaders find that they are spending less energy pushing solutions and more time developing the thinking of people around them and co-collaborating on decisions and solutions together. So my challenge to you today is this. Ask one open-ended question. Put another way, ask one thoughtful, open-ended question before offering your own viewpoint. And then notice what happens. How does that person respond? What did you learn? Does what you want to say or ask next change? One of the biggest myths in leadership is that great leaders always have all the answers. But in reality, many of the strongest leaders I work with have developed a different habit. They ask better questions. Thank you for listening to this episode of Transformative Leadership Conversations. If you're ready to take your leadership to the next level or empower your teams for success, I'm here to help. Reach out to me directly at winnie@winifred.org or visit www.winniedasilva.com to learn more about my work coaching executives, developing critical leadership skills, and helping organizations build effective teams. You can find me on Substack, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And remember, you're always welcome to take a seat at the table where every conversation has the potential for transformative change.